May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O Lord, my rock and my redeemer. Well, in today's gospel from Matthew, we encounter two really desperate people. A synagogue leader whose daughter has just died, and a woman who's been hemorrhaging for 12 years. Both have arrived at a place where they can no longer rely upon their own resources. Both have reached the end of their ropes, and both turn to Jesus. I suspect that most of us know something about this experience. There are moments in life when we discover that determination alone is not enough. There are burdens we can't carry by ourselves, wounds we can't heal by ourselves, and questions we cannot answer by ourselves. And that is where we find this woman in today's gospel. For 12 years, she has suffered. 12 years of pain, 12 years of uncertainty, 12 years of being ostracized, 12 years of being alone, 12 years of disappointment. In Mark's telling of the story, we learn that she had spent everything she had on seeking a cure. She had pursued every avenue available to her. She had invested her resources, her energy, and her hope in one remedy after another, and still she suffered. Then she heard about Jesus. Somewhere along the way, she had been convinced that Jesus could do what no one else had been able to do. She makes her way through the crowd and says to herself, "If only I touch his cloak, I will be made well." So the picture up here is, it's in a kind of in a shrine or a museum in Israel, and I was just profoundly taken aback when I saw the photo. It's a photo I took of this painting, and it's just the perspective is at foot level, and you can see the woman reaching out to touch his cloak. It's very meaningful, I think. But when she spoke, "If I only touch his cloak, I can be healed," she was fully confident that that healing would occur. There was no wavering, no calculation, and she didn't say, "Maybe if I touch his cloak." She said, "If only I touch his cloak." It's simply her faith. And she reaches out, and Jesus felt her touch his cloak, and he said, "Take heart, daughter, your faith has made you well." So I grew up, and I've spent my entire life in the state of Wyoming. Wyoming is one of those states in the West that just has straight lines for borders. And in the middle of Wyoming, we're from one corner to the other. In Casper, it's about right in the center. That's where I grew up. And in Casper, there's a place called the Wyoming Rescue Mission. And the rescue mission serves those peoples on the margin, the homeless, the hungry, the addicted. And the Episcopal Church in Wyoming has a relationship with the mission. And over the years, I've had a chance to spend some time there with the folks that are going through, that run the mission, and the folks that are going through recovery there. And I've learned a lot from those people. I've learned a lot about Jesus from them. Because most of the people that arrive there are like Jairus, the leader of the synagogue, and like this woman. They are lost. They have nothing. Due to their problems, personal problems, when they end up at the mission, that's pretty much as far down as they can fall. They've lost their families, they've lost their homes, They can't hold a job. They've lost their sense of purpose and their self-worth. And a lot of them have spent years looking for an answer. They've tried promises. They've tried programs. They've tried willpower. We all know during Lent how long willpower lasts. They've tried convincing themselves that tomorrow would somehow be different than today. But eventually they come to a realization that's both painful and liberating. I can't save myself. Many of the people at the rescue mission eventually arrive at a profound realization. They cannot carry the weight of recovery alone. So they lean on the only thing they have. They lean on Jesus. Their sobriety depends on Jesus. Their recovery depends on Jesus. And their hope depends on Jesus. They learn to place their trust in something larger than themselves. And whenever I spend time there, I come away greatly encouraged. The people at the mission have a clarity of faith that can inspire all of us. They know exactly where their strength comes from, and they know exactly who's carrying them through to the next day. You can see faith in action at the rescue mission. And I think that's what connects the residents of the rescue mission with the woman in today's gospel. Both have exhausted every source of hope. Both have reached a point where faith is no longer an abstract idea. Faith has become essential. Faith has become the thing that carries them forward. The woman reaches through the crowd because she believes Jesus can restore her life. And the people at the rescue mission cling to Jesus because they believe he can restore their lives. And in both cases, Jesus responds with compassion. One of the most beautiful details in this story is the word Jesus used when he speaks to the woman. He calls her daughter. And that single word's easy to just gloss over and miss, but I think it's probably the most important word in the story because for 12 years, this poor woman was known only by her illness. She didn't, in the story, she doesn't receive a name. We don't know what her name is. And all we know is that she was the hemorrhaging woman. But her suffering was her identity. Her illness was her identity. She was known as the woman who bled, the woman who suffered, the woman who carried her burden year after year. But Jesus sees something deeper. He sees her true self. He looks beyond her condition and calls her daughter. Before he restores her health, he restores her identity. And before he addresses her illness, he reminds her that she belongs. And that transformation happens every day in places like the rescue mission. A man arrives there believing that his identity is addict. A woman arrives there believing that her identity is failed mother. Someone comes through the door convinced that they are broken and beyond repair. And slowly, through prayer, intercession, recovery, community, and faith, a different truth begins to emerge. They discover that they are children of God. They discover that discovery changes everything. Because lasting transformation rarely begins with behavior. It begins with identity. And when people understand that they're loved by God, claimed by God, and valued by God, they begin to see themselves differently. And when they see themselves differently, they begin to behave differently. They begin to live differently. And the challenge for us this morning is to recognize that this gospel story is not only about a woman who lived 2,000 years ago, and it's not only about people living in a rescue mission in central Wyoming. It's about us. It's about all of us. Most of us carry wounds that no one can see. Some of us have immense grief. Some are lonely. Some are anxious. And some have guilt. And some are worried about the future. Many of us have spent years looking for answers. Sometimes we find our answer in work, accumulation of possessions. We can stay busy. We can pursue success. We can keep ourselves distracted. And we can convince ourselves that one more accomplishment or one more achievement will finally bring peace. Yet sooner or later, we often encounter a deeper question. Where will I place my trust? The woman in the story today placed her trust in Jesus. The residents of the rescue mission placed their trust in Jesus. And we all are invited to do the same. Now we know that God works through physicians, counselors, recovery programs, friends, and family. These are gifts from God, and they can play an important role in healing. Yet beneath all those gifts lies a deeper reality. Every one of us must eventually decide where our ultimate hope resides. And this woman found hers in Jesus. And the good news of today's gospel is that Jesus meets people at the end of their ropes. He meets the desperate father. He meets the suffering woman. He meets people struggling with addictions. He meets people burdened by grief. He meets people carrying wounds that no one else can see. And he meets us. And what he does, he speaks the same word that he spoke to the woman. Daughter, son, child of God. That is our identity. That is who we are. And when we know who we are, we discover that faith is more than just wishful thinking. Faith becomes the confidence that Christ is holding us, even when our strength is gone. Now, there's an old saying. You might have heard it before. When you reach the end of your rope, tie a knot and hang on. But the people at the rescue mission have taught me something even deeper. When we reach the end of our rope, we often discover that Jesus was holding the other end all along. Amen.